a practical guide on how to get started. We're going to try and offer up some step-by-step instructions on how to actually prepare to do engagement, as well as some best practices and common pitfalls that we've identified when working alongside advertisers. The webinar will be about 45 minutes long, during which time you can pose questions using the chat function. We'll then include a short Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to chime in if there's anything you would like explained in a bit more detail. The full presentation and talk will be sent out to all today's attendees, so you'll have a handy reference to share with your team. Additionally, we'll be providing downloadable PDF handouts to an Adjust ebook and a Jampp data report, which will provide further reading and insight. First, we're going to start with a quick intro on both of our companies.
Great, thanks, Joff. So real quickly, a little bit about Adjust. So we are a business intelligence platform that was built with the aim of simplifying measurement in the mobile ecosystem. So our open source SDK directly connects to over 800 partners and lets you start tracking all your marketing channels, whether that's an email campaign, whether you're tracking on Facebook, Google, or Twitter. We essentially can track from any source. We also track all your downstream post-install events as well, and we tie these back to the original campaign source. So we were built in 2012, and we've now got over 120 employees spread across 14 different countries around the world.
Jampp is an all-in-one marketing platform. We combine user acquisition and engagement to minimize the cost of acquiring new active users outside of Facebook. So we kind of bring that Facebook buying experience to the tangled world of display, effectively putting a layer of technology between advertisers and the myriad of different buying channels that exist, from RTB exchanges to video networks to ad networks and so on. We got started in 2012 as well, and now have a team of just over 75 people based in 6 locations around the world. And we have a global client roster that spans every vertical, including the obvious ones such as ride sharing, travel, e-commerce, and gaming. So we're going to kick things off with a quick recap. How does engagement actually work? And we're going to highlight the various roles that both companies play in helping you to deliver your engagement campaigns. Now, as we all know, on desktop, it's very easy to drop a cookie into a user's browser as a way to record their browsing activity and try and understand which websites they have visited. Cookies still exist on mobile, but the trouble is that they don't work very well. Instead, a whole new approach is required, and so mobile user activity is identified using device IDs. And this is a unique mobile identifier used to identify every single device. 2 most relevant are the Google Advertising ID for Android and the Apple identifier for advertisers, the Apple ID for iOS devices. As we're going to cover in more detail, it's therefore fundamental for both advertisers and publishers to pass device ID information when tracking activity in order to determine if an ad was served to a specific user and whether that user was re-engaged.
Great. So one of the first steps for any app marketer will always be to define the in-app events that for them are important to measure. So this can include planning the types of metadata as well that will add value when you go to do things like retargeting. So once you've tagged these events up in your app, and you've also decided to work with a retargeting partner like Jampp, you'll want to make sure that you're sending them all the right types of information. So for Adjust, this happens actually quite easily via something we call our partner modules. So we're sending all installs, events, and metadata automatically over on every single interaction.
Jampp then groups your users together in what we call segments. I'm going to talk about this in more detail shortly. These users of yours are often using other apps. So let's say, for example, their favorite news app. As a way to monetize this news app sells its ad inventory, a common way for publishers to do this is by selling their inventory to a real-time bidding exchange. It's essentially like putting your ad space up for sale on eBay, where the highest bidder can win an auction to show their ad. Jampp is integrated with 23 RTB exchanges globally, and that gives us enormous reach and the potential to get in front of your users. The hard bit is knowing how much to bid on every auction. So to do this successfully, you need to sift through a mountain of data and then accurately predict what each user is worth. And you can imagine how technically challenging this process is, as the entire auction lasts probably less than 80 milliseconds. Once Jampp wins the auction, the user clicks on your ad and is taken to a specific page in your app via a deep link, which is another topic we're going to delve into deeper shortly.
Once this user has clicked on this deep link, Adjust is actually, within the SDK, is actually reading and measuring this deep link. We're then actually checking the logic of whether or not that user who's clicked should even be reattributed. And we're basing this on the settings that someone has set up in the dashboard. So we actually have two settings in the dashboard, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit. But these are mainly the inactivity window. So that's defining how long a user has to be inactive before they can be considered for reattribution, as well as the attribution window, which is the window for which someone can be attributed for a campaign. And then, if all of this logic clears, this user will actually then be reattributed to a new segment. So for example, it could be Jampp retargeting, and all of their subsequent events will forever be in that segment until they're reattributed or attributed to another campaign.
Okay, so that completes the backstory. Now, let's tackle the main topic and get to grips with the actual steps you are going to need to take to get an engagement campaign underway. These are the key areas we're going to address. We're going to tackle these one at a time and come back to this screen, kind of like a main menu. So you don't need to memorize everything that you're seeing right now. First up, let's talk about deep linking. So a deep link is a hyperlink that takes users straight to your app. With deep linking enabled, when someone who already has your app installed clicks on your engagement ad, that click results in the app automatically being opened up on their phone. It's a seamless user journey. Now, without deep linking enabled, when that person clicks on your ad, the App Store opens up on their phone. Here, they can click open, which will then proceed to open the app up. But sometimes this can confuse users, so that they shut down the App Store and therefore never actually make it back into your app. In general, we see open rates decline by about a third. So a click-through rate of, say, 1% with deep linking will probably equate to about 0.6% without deep linking. So it's worth bearing in mind that you can run a test engagement campaign without deep linking enabled, which is sometimes the best option if you're in a crunch to meet your KPIs and get something off the ground ASAP. If things look promising and you want to minimize your CPA further, you need to enable deep linking.
So as Joff just touched on, deep links are a really handy tool for pushing users to directly interact with your app. And luckily, they're actually cleverly built into the operating system of any device you have. So creating them can actually be quite simple. The ability to link these apps was actually very, very limited before deep linking came along. So you can imagine that when you ran a typical campaign before, your user would have to figure out what funnel you're trying to get them to, or if it was for an item, they'd probably have to search for that item once they went into your app. But now there are many different kinds of deep links. The industry has actually defined 3 that we'll be talking about here. The first one we have is a default deep link. So default deep links are only actually going to redirect the user to an installed app. So they're not going to actually go to the App Store at all. It's just going to direct you directly into the app. So you need to make sure that your users actually have the app installed before running this type of campaign. The next type of deep link is a conditional deep link. For us here at Adjust, we just call these deferred deep links. And the logic is a bit different. So now we're actually going to be sending user, we're going to read and see if that user has the app installed. And if they don't, that user gets redirected to the App Store. And then when they install the app again, they will be redirected to the specific page that you were trying to redirect them to in the first place. The final type of deep link is a contextual deep link. But again, we just call these deferred deep links as well. The reason they're contextual is that they have a bit more information that comes with the click. So it could be things like data campaign, for example. So there's a number of different ways that you can do things with these types of deferred deep links. So you might have a flight sale and you want to give someone a discount when they click, so you could get information from the campaign to serve up a really, really nice experience to that user when they click.
So building your deep link is typically the domain of your product team, so we're not going to wade too far into the weeds here. What you should know is that essentially the deep link scheme consists of two components, a deep link URI and a deep link intent or path. The URI, which stands for Uniform Resource Identifier, is the address for your app on a mobile device. The deep link intent is the address to the specific page within your app. And you can see there a sort of basic example of this super resto app that we're using as a proxy. So this gives you an idea of some example deep link schemes from that example app. And this is a good takeaway slide to get you thinking about your own specific app and vertical. And it could be a handy one to share with your product team. Right, back to the main menu. And now we're going to look at integrating in-app events. So as an advertiser, the most valuable thing you can do to enable the best engagement results possible is to collect all your in-app activity correctly. So this implies you're tracking all the relevant events in your app event funnel, from the app open event right through to the key event, which might be purchase, for example. If you don't do this, you're only tracking the install and key event perhaps, and you're creating a black box in the middle. You don't actually have any indication of whether a user almost made a purchase or how close they came, or if in fact they dropped out ages ago at the registration page. It also implies that you're tracking all additional information about each event, called event metadata. Now, the word metadata basically means a value or parameter that is added to the postback URL. For instance, you may have a content view event in your app, and you can append content ID as metadata, which tells Jampp the exact content that has been viewed. So rather than just seeing a user has viewed a restaurant, we actually see which restaurant they viewed and maybe say the type of cuisine. So using the restaurant theme, here's a good example of sort of complete data tracking. You can see all of those events there along with the metadata that's being appended. For comparison, here is a poorly executed example. So notice how the open event is missing, so we can't measure retention. Restaurant view is missing, so we can't identify active users. And finally, metadata is missing, so we can't enable dynamic product ads, which are a way to build creatives on the fly based on a user's previous inactivity. And again, we're going to have a slide on that later.
So as Joff mentioned, tracking and understand your user behavior within your app is pretty vital. It helps you catch users at the right moment so you can encourage them to do further actions. And when you start analyzing and measuring these patterns, it also allows you to plan when and how to engage and re-engage with your users. So at Adjust, it's pretty straightforward actually to set up events. You'll see here by default with our SDK, we're automatically tracking the clicks, the installs, conversion rate, sessions, as well as all of the reattributions. But when you want to set up these custom events, all you'll need to do is literally just name the event, you'll get a token, and you hand that to your developer who'll put it in the SDK. So some of the things you might want to consider when you're making these events is whether or not you need a unique event. So sometimes events could only be triggered once. So this could happen, let's say, if you are, having a first-time registration, if you're doing first tutorial complete, or if it's even something like the first ride that someone's taken in your taxi. You'll also want to consider things like how your partners are naming events. So you could run into problems if your partners name the event when it goes to do things like building these segments. So with us, again, this is pretty straightforward. We have something that we call event mapping, where you literally just name the event, what your partner has named it, and then all of your events, regardless of what their name, will go through in the right name to your partner. It's also quite common to hook event tracking into your callbacks so that you can capture extra metadata that you might want to sync to your own servers, to your own BI platform, or even into the cloud. So you can use custom callbacks to do this, and you can set that up when at the same time that you set up these events. And this would mean then that you're going to receive metadata and extra data on each and every iteration of an event being triggered. So the next thing we're going to cover is setting up and managing your tracker URLs. So in order to track various campaigns, you obviously are going to need a tracker. So what you'll see at the top is just a pretty standard Adjust tracker. And this funny little word here that sort of looks like foobar would be your app token that you'd have to put in there so that we for sure know that it is your app that we are tracking. So it's a way for us to know it. We call it shared secret. So any of our trackers that you create will actually report down 4 levels. So with us, you only ever need 1 tracker per partner. So we'll be tracking things automatically like the network that you're running with, let's say Jampp, the campaign that they're running with, the ad group, as well as all of the different creatives that you're using. So it's fairly easy to create these trackers. It's a very similar setup to the event creation where you literally just name a tracker, and then you might want to add some extra parameters. So if we're looking at things like retargeting, we're always going to need to have a device ID on there because this is definitely something that we use to match and to make sure that we're tracking the right campaign. So all you'll do is add these parameters and perhaps also a deep link to this tracker to push people to the right place in your app. And once that's done, you would hand this over to Jampp and it starts working. So we will only do a reattribution if the user has been inactive for the right amount of time that you've set in the dashboard. So default for us is 7 days, but you can change that and it's in an adjustable window. So from there, we're actually then going to just quickly touch on these attribution windows because it can be a bit tricky to think about. So now you know that when a user clicks on one of these campaigns that they could be reattributed and that this reattribution process is actually happening. And again, these campaigns can be run anywhere. So they could run on an email, they could run through any of your own channels, and they could run with any single partner that you're working with. So we've learned so far that attribution, so that first attribution is matching a user's first app open to some prior engagement, whether that be a click or an impression. So reattribution then is matching a user's session to a prior engagement. This engagement maybe being a click on a deep link. So similar to attribution, clients are able to customize this reattribution window. So we have what we call this inactive user definition. So this is the minimum amount of time a user has been inactive before we will actually consider this user for reattribution. And as I said, the default is 7 days. However, there's many, many, many examples where you might want to set this to actually be at day 0. The next thing we have is the attribution window. And this is the click on a re-engagement add to an app open window. So again, the default is 7 days, but you might actually want to make this longer or shorter, totally depending on your own campaign goals.
Okay, the 5th thing you'll need to do is share your data. So having successfully integrated your in-app events, and with that data now passing into the Adjust platform, you now need to share that data with Jampp. And this is done with an easy toggle in the Adjust dashboard. As you can imagine, the more data you share, the greater granularity we can bring to your engagement strategy. So the questions you should be asking, are you sending all the events in the funnel, or is it just the install? Are you sending events from all your attributed channels, including Facebook, Google, organics? And are you sending metadata correctly? And if you want to drive the best results possible, one of your goals as a marketing manager is to be able to answer yes to all three of those questions. And that's going to allow you to multiply the effectiveness of your campaigns. So great, you're sharing your data, which is now being received in our platform. Clearly, all the users that are coming into your app, they're different. We'll see that they exhibit different behavior. Some will have opened your app multiple times, others maybe never. Some will have browsed multiple products on multiple occasions, others may have done just a single search. Additionally, there is different contextual data surrounding your users. Some will own the latest iPhone 7, probably having traded it in for a Galaxy Note 7 that caught fire in their trousers. Others, a 4-year-old cracked handset. This could be one such simple indicator of your users' buying power. And because all of your users are different, you want to ensure you're showing them re-engagement ads that are relevant to their level of in-app activity. And you want to be bidding different values to bring back users on the spectrum of buying power. So there's no way all users are worth the same. And this is what segmentation does. It allows you to group together users into segments, which you can then target on a more granular basis. When done properly, segmentation forms the cornerstone of a really robust engagement campaign that will help you lower your CPA and drive as many incremental sales as possible. Segmentation is one of those areas of the mobile industry that is evolving significantly, and this slide gives you an idea of how we have been in the driving seat of that evolution. A while back, we used to receive static segments, typically in the form of a CSV file containing a list of device IDs provided by you, the advertiser. They get the job done, but we've been able to build on this. Dynamic segments are created using real-time install and post-install event data from your tracking partner like Adjust. They update automatically, so users are automatically added or removed from each dynamic segment based on their real-time in-app activity. So that means that targeted audiences always remain relevant. So what I mean by that is if I just clicked purchase and bought some new golf clubs that you've been retargeting with me with, in that very instant, I move into the already purchased segment. So I'm not showing the golf clubs I already own ever again. Instead, you can now show me the matching golf bag, for example. Obviously, you get better personalization too, as engagement ads are specific to each target audience with customized ad messages and calls to actions. And then finally, step forward to today, and we've built on this to provide predictive segments, which use machine learning and predictive modeling to improve segmentation further. So we examine existing conversion patterns among your users and look at behavioral and contextual data of new users to work out who are the more likely to convert if we show them a re-engagement ad. It takes more than 150 variables to build an accurate portrayal, so it's beyond anything that can happen manually. This then allows the platform to calculate or predict the probability of conversion of new users. The smart part is that the platform automatically adjusts your bidding strategy for each user. The other great thing is that it reduces your onboarding time to practically zero. All we do is share your Adjust data for 15 days, while the platform then automatically builds the segments. Now, in order for predictive segments to work accurately and for our platform to have enough data, you need to be tracking a minimum of 4 or more in-app events. and you will need at least 40,000 monthly active users per platform and per geo where you wish to utilize this feature. So this slide kind of going to help you to picture it. It basically means that rather than paying the same amount for different value users like you currently do using standard segmentation, you now have a bidding strategy that automatically becomes more aggressive when you have the chance to show an ad to a valuable user and vice versa. The key benefit is that it reduces your CPA while increasing the number of sales within the same fixed audience. Now, if you can't meet these prerequisite criteria yet, it's no big deal. Our standard segments are dynamic in nature and carry all the benefits of being very granular. It's just a manual process this time around that involves our data science team. They look at your Adjust data to understand how different users are being retained in your app. In this example, let's say from new users to active users to those who have abandoned their cart, and maybe those who are already customers. Our retargeting team then use the data science team's analysis to do 4 things. Build out your segments. They then set respective targeting windows to decide the duration for how long we try and re-engage those different segments. They assign different messaging to optimize relevance. And finally, they create a bidding strategy. So this time, the minimum requirements are slightly different. You only need to be tracking 2 or more events, although bear in mind that will limit the granularity of the plan, so 4 is probably still the magic number. You still need 40,000 K MAU for each OS and per geo, and you should share your Adjust data for 21 days to give our data science team plenty of time to crunch those numbers. Right, we're almost there. Pretty much the last step is to build your creatives. Now, you can be the most diligent marketing manager in the world when it comes to steps 1 to 5. If you don't put proper time and attention into building your creatives, your campaign performance will undoubtedly suffer. Think of this as 1 small step for the campaign, a giant leap for the campaign performance. The first thing I always say to advertisers is that you should disengage your analytical side when you're tackling this final challenge. Although A/B testing will help you decide which creatives are working best, A/B testing can't help you come up with eye-catching, action-inspired ads in the first instance. That comes down to your creativity. We can offer creative support when it comes to banner design, but rather than go into too much detail on the call, I'm providing a downloadable PDF guide, and that will give you plenty of pointers on how to build effective banners. Couple of key points. Size-wise, so these are the absolute must-have sizes you're going to need in order to help your campaign scale across as many different sources as possible. If you focused on just a handful of sizes, you'll miss additional opportunities to get in front of your users. Like, why take that risk? Secondly, we can help you to tailor-make your banners for different segments. Notice in this example how for first-time users of a food delivery app, we're emphasizing that they can get their food sent to their door in just 30 minutes, right? Which is a great value proposition. But in the example on the right, we're targeting an existing customer who likes Chinese food. And we know that from the Adjust data. They're more likely to click when we remind them that it's Chinese New Year. And then finally, sort of unwritten rule that I haven't put on here, but never use your acquisition banners for engagement campaigns. I know that might seem like really obvious advice because right now, right here, we're discussing the topic with some granularity. Let's face it, in the real world, marketers are often working to tight deadlines. And there's always that tendency to cut corners. The issue here is that your banner will say, download the app, which already doesn't make sense to me as I already have the app downloaded. So already you're struggling to re-engage your audience. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can go the whole hog and automate your creative building using dynamic product ads, or DPA as they're abbreviated. These ads have the highest relevance and conversion rate among users, so you get a great performance boost. They pull in the actual imagery and perhaps price and location, if relevant, of a user's last viewed product. In order to take advantage of DPA, you'll need to have established some minimum requirements. Firstly, you'll need deep linking enabled, and we've covered that. Secondly, you'll need a place where the ads content can be pulled from, which is called your product feed. If you already use a product feed, by the way, for Facebook, for Google, our feed is 100% compatible. Specifications wise, just make sure the feed is either a CSV or XML file so we can integrate it our side. And then finally, remember to open the feed and identify the fields that match with the product IDs or category IDs in your event data. That way, everything is actually going to match up when we start pulling stuff in. So we thought it'd be handy to include a brief case study, which hopefully provides a bit of insight around using DPA from an advertiser's frame of reference. We'll leave you to read through this one in your own time. So we're not going to go into it in much detail here. Right. To bring things back full circle, you'll see that we've actually gone through each element in priority order. If you want to know how to start tomorrow with your first engagement campaign, then your first call is to set up a meeting with your product team, begin figuring out the best way to enable deep linking. I've added a small kind of like duration indicator in purple to give you an idea of which of these priorities will take the most time to deliver. And I haven't added a scale, as it's really going to depend a lot on how you're set up as an organization, how closely your product, marketing, and design teams work together. But this gives you a sort of a rough idea. So that leaves us with just one final step: establishing and measuring your KPIs. This is worth giving a special mention to, as it's actually a critical aspect in ensuring the performance of your campaign actually meets your expectation. Firstly, it's good practice to split your budgets. We see advertisers with different budgets do three things normally. Firstly, bring new installs via a user acquisition campaign. Secondly, to activate new users among their install base via an engagement campaign. And thirdly, to drive repeat purchases to get them to order more frequently and at higher basket value, and again, all done via an engagement campaign. You also want to split your KPIs to match each area where you are spending budget. This allows us to optimize your CPA during acquisition, your cost per first order, for example, if you want to measure the number of new customers, and your cost per order, or even return on ad spend, as you try to maximize the value of your repeat customers. Finally, it's very important that you let us know how you are measuring your KPIs. Are you measuring that cost per first order based on event date, or are you looking at cohorted data? This helps us to align 100% with your measurement goals so that everyone is on the same page. And it may seem a small point, but it's amazing that sometimes advertisers overlook this, and that can cause complications. So, final point, you can start from any stage of readiness. So if the prospect of some of the more advanced features has you salivating, remember you can start doing engagement and evolve your features over time. So you don't have to jump in at the deep end, you can wade in up to your knees first. I guarantee, by the way, that a large percentage of you could actually start re-engaging your users within 1 to 3 weeks of today's call. And with later developments, you'll be able to add in deep linking, start sharing your metadata, and/or run dynamic product ads powered by predictive segments.